Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Try praying differently and see what happens. Instead of asking for a way to sleep with her, try asking for a way to stop desiring to sleep with her. Instead of a way to get rid of him, try asking for a way not to crave his demise. Instead of a way not to lose something, try asking for a way to lose my fear of it. Alrighty, top of the day. Good morning. So, I started with some Marcus Aurelius quotes. I figure we're going to be doing the Prodigal Son today. And I've been doing a lot of scripture. And figured it'd be nice to toss those in there. And really what I do is, like I've said before, I sit down. I have this thing that's in my mind of what the overall message is to be conveyed. But outside of that, I haven't given it too much thought. And I pick out some quotes that I like and then ask the love within me to tie it all together for some message that's going to come out. And those are the ones that wanted to be in here, which I find fascinating. So we'll tie those into this today. It'll be fun to see how this plays out with those and the parable of the lost son, as I promised I would go over in the prior episode. So first I'm just going to read it and then we'll dive in. So do I want to read it word for word, or hey buddy, do I want to read it word for word, or do I want to do it? There's my cat. I don't know. You saying I should do it word for word? All right, buddy. All right. You heard it. Silo the cat says do it word for word. Okay. So Jesus continued, there was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to the father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all that he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to a citizen of the country, who sent him into his fields to feed the pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. I just realized this is the new international version, and I'm used to the other one. It just reads weird to me. It's like the other one would be like, and no man gave unto him. Whatever. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am. This new international version is hilarious. And here I am starving to death. That's not what he said in the other one. So when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, and filled with compassion for him, he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worried to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe, put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the calf, the fatted calf. That's my cat. Let us have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. All right, so the older son comes over. So he called one of the servants and asked him, what's going on? I should have just read this like with a completely different energy, because it's lighter and your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out to him and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, look, this is hilarious. All these years I've been Oh man. I almost feel like comparing it to the other one for you guys just because of how different it is. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never even gave me a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you killed the fatted calf for him." My son, the father said, "You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, and now he is found." And you know what I'm going to do? Whatever, even the King James version. Oh, that's the new. All right, you know what? Whatever. We're just gonna go with that other one. I'm reading. I went to go to the King James version, which I pretty much have in my head. But I just wanted to read it, make sure I didn't miss any words. And so then I went to go look at the King James version, and I was thinking of reading that one, and then I open it up, and it's like still similar to this, and I look, and it's the new King James version, right? So I'm going to give you guys my interpretation, right? One thing I want to really bring home here, I was talking to my friend Faith about it yesterday. When I look out at material in the outer world, I look at the outer world as a part of all that I am. And, you know, like I've said before, we're kind of standing in between the past and the possibility, the new that will come in, and the past, which is technically the present. So it's what's being presented to you. So when you look out of your eyes at the world, two things are happening. You are, if you know, you're open to the level of awareness of newness, you're bringing in the new and observing what's being presented. And so there's a wonderful opportunity for you to change your world by beginning with changing your perspective, right? And that's why Jesus, when he refers to eyes having power and stuff like that, yeah, your perspective is everything, right? In more ways than I need to dive into here, in more ways than I have yet to fully grasp, right? But anyways, when I look out at the past, when I look out what's presented in front of me, there's a little voice in my head, more or less, that understands that no matter what I see outside of me, what seems to be outside of me, it is incomplete. And it will always be incomplete. And it's that understanding within me that allows me to have the ability to be aware of what is being presented, but also have an open enough mind that I can continue to get inspiration. The minute because I can close that door if I look out at what's being presented to me as the all of the creator, not a part of the creator, the Mother, Father, God, the content and form, the possibility and manifestation, right? The creator and created. So it's an important distinction. So everything that I say here on these casts, it will be incomplete, period. So when you listen to it, you are going to add to what I say. It's very important to have that perspective. And to me, it's paramount to insanity to me that, you know, even though I'm using these scriptures, I realize that as I read them, that was then, this is now. And I allow the Spirit, love, to flow into me and give me revelations that correspond with this time period, as well as, and very importantly, my responsibility. And again, that is my intention, action, and ability to respond. So, and that's the beautiful thing about this life. And when you see things as incomplete, because you are the conduit between the new and that which you are reading, right? You will transform it into what it is that you'd like to create. And that's how the universe continues to create. And sometimes we have been, you know, through our education system in the past, has really been focused on like just idolizing past people's information and saying that this is complete, and that's going to be the answer. And I like to say, that was then, this is now. That was them, you are you. They had their intentions, you have yours. And so it gives you this wonderful ability to not deny what's in front of your face, but to add to it, all right? So this is my interpretation, and I have a particular set of intentions, and so I will see this. And there are other people who could read the Bible and pick up different things. And a lot of times, when you look at material, what's in front of your face, that which is within you will color it. And usually it will align with your responsibility, your intentions, your values, and your beliefs. So some people can read some scripture and see it completely different. And that's valuable to them, because if they can stand back from themselves and see how they're interpreting it, knowing that they're flavoring it with their own biases, it may give them a better understanding of some of their unconscious and subconscious and even conscious intentions, and say, does that truly align? Am I split somewhere? Right? So some people can read the Bible and think it means to go commit a holy war and go kill other people that are not of the same mindset. Right? So anyways, so this is my interpretation, and I would say as I provide it, it's going to be incomplete as it's given to you, because the minute you hear it, you're going to flavor it. And it may resonate strong. You may say, hey, I love this interpretation, I'm going with this, and that's going to say that, that's where we're resonating, right? So what makes us resonate with one another is overall our responsibility and our intention. So if it resonates with you, it probably means that we have similar overall intentions of the direction that we want to head in for creating experiences in this plane of reality, right? All right, so here's interesting. So you have three parties involved, right? You have the father and you have two sons, right? The younger son said to the father, "Give me my share," and he ran out, and the share was divided, right? And one way we can look at that is like, when you're born innocent, and you're full of the Spirit, right? You're full of love. Babies are, and that's how they can learn so much. They got this channel is wide open, right? But at the same time, also, during the early years of their life, they're wide open and they're extremely receptive to their outer world. And so it's at this time, going back to the parable that we said, I think yesterday, that an adversary came in the night and threw weeds amongst the seeds. So all sorts of stuff are going to get thrown at you. The body that you incarnated into is going to have a particular set of value belief paradigms embedded into its DNA. And that's going to be the game, is going to be to go out like the younger son. Then he goes out into the world. He squandered all of his inheritance. So he squanders all of that love spirit, right? And after he spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. And this is an interesting piece right here, because one way you can interpret that is your outer world being a reflection of you is, it's as you run out of that spirit, out of that love, and you do that by developing value and belief paradigms of conditions that you think are protecting you, but are ultimately preventing you from receiving that love. It's eventually going to manifest in your outer world. So you notice they didn't say there was a severe famine in the world and then he spent everything. No, it was after he spent all of his spirit, right? And through that period of time, he basically estranged himself from his father. So he had a finite amount because he was separate from the father, right? Separate from his source of being. So he had a limited amount, and then he spent it all out in the world and cut himself off with value beliefs that he's separate from his source of being, right? And then once it was all gone, then that lack of love manifested in his outer reality. So basically, he was in lack inside, and so the lack was only a matter of time until it manifested outside. And that's a very key thing to think about. It was after he spent everything there was a severe famine. Not, there was a severe famine and then he spent everything. So he went out and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to the fields to feed the pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything, right? And the Bible says, and the old King James says, and no man gave unto him. Now, that could be another thing showing the reflection aspect of our reality, right? So as you squander all your love and cut yourself off from your source of being. So as you cut yourself off from your source of being, remember that love is in all and through all. And so the more that we separate ourselves from that source of being, we actually start to do that with everybody else. And we become hyper individualized and feel like we're all alone. And the world can only, everybody's characters in your story. And so as these beliefs grow and this all aloneness and stuff like that, it manifests out, right? And so he was in such a state of lack that nobody would give him anything anyways. I've had people say, oh yeah, when I'm in a relationship, I feel like people are always hitting on me, but if I'm single, I feel like nobody wants me, right? It's that lack mentality, right? It's the abundance mentality versus lack mentality, right? If a man reaches out with his hand full, he will receive more than he has in his hands. If he reaches out with his hand empty, he'll have what little he has left taken from him. So then it says, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I know I'm not worthy to be called your son, but I'm willing to be your servant. So he got up and went to his father. Now, this is an interesting part. I've seen it happen to a lot of people who have awakened. I did it in my own way. When I hit my own version of rock bottom. And the funny thing is I had what I wanted, but I felt very alone. And I felt like there's this giant hole inside of me that I couldn't fulfill. And I just wasn't happy for a long time. I guess in some ways I was happy, but I was always happy chasing after things or ideas or something. I was in a really rough place, but I was in fight or flight most of my life. But I didn't know any better. I was born premature, 2 months premature. I was, in an incubator, 3 years old. We were removed from my biological home because we were left home by ourselves for a considerable amount of time. Parents were drug addicts. And then we went through 12 foster homes before I was 5. Then we got adopted. And then some things happened there. And pretty interesting things. And then we got unadopted by the time I was 12. And then in foster homes again. It was just basically my whole life was just turmoil and chaos. And so I never really knew what it was like to have peace of mind. I could find it. I used to read a lot. I used to read a lot of fantasy books, and that was when I would feel like safe and things like that. But it was escaping into those worlds, But when I woke up, when I called out, I don't go to church now. I don't believe anybody needs to go to church. If they want to go to church, that's awesome, but I don't. And my sister asked me to go to hers, and I saw there were people singing, and they had their hands up, and one dude looked like he was just in pure happiness. And I remember I was judging the people in there. I was like thinking of them as sheep. I was very anti-religion, and I wouldn't say I'm anti-religion. I accept religion. I accept whatever, right? Because I understand things much different than I once did. But I was very anti-religion. I thought they were putting separation between the creator, if it even existed, and us, and I thought it was kind of judgy and stuff. And I have different interpretations now. There's no need to really discuss those, but so I had those judgments in, and I looked at the guy's face, and a little voice said to me, it was like, you think you're so smart. When was the last time you think you're smarter than that man? And I definitely did. Right. And so when was the last time you were that happy? And I was like, oh boy. And I started looking around the room, and I saw so many happy people in there. And there was even a girl that was like dancing in the front of the thing. They were playing music, and she was swinging around a flag. And I judged her before, and I saw her smiling, and I'm like, what? I don't even know the last time I was happy. Like, really happy. And I'll never forget this. And I was like, I just looked up into the right, and I said, God, if you even exist, I said it in my head, and I was like, I think I'm so smart. I've thought I'm so smart. I'm a fool. I don't even know how to be happy anymore. But I know what I want. And then as I was like saying this in my head, like my eyes started watering, and I was like, I want to be my best. And I don't even know what that is. But that's what I want. If you're real, show me. Show me how to be my best, and I'll do whatever. I don't know what else to do. And I got this wave through my whole body, my mind. And that was the day when my awakening began. And I saw this. It's funny too, because up until very recently, I hadn't seen images in my head. Not in the same way. I saw them multidimensionally, but I couldn't see like pictures, like regular normal pictures. And I've been working on that for a while. I do spaces with someone named Hermit, and him and I have been kind of talking through it. And I realized it was a trauma situation. I had a very active imagination before that, and I had experienced so much trauma that I was afraid to. Then I actually remembered. I can't believe it was like blocked out of my mind until I did some digging recently. I had to do something to block the images because I would get flashbacks, or fears would just play out like a movie in my head that I had no control over. Intrusive thoughts and images. And it's funny, I forgot all about that. But anyways, so in this thing it says I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and earth. So now at that moment, so at that moment I got this wave washed over me, and I felt. It's funny because what I felt then was a snippet of how I feel a lot of the times nowadays. I probably feel way better than I felt in that moment, but relatively speaking, I had such a high pain threshold, and I had been in so much pain that just turning that pain down for a minute felt like heaven, right? Everything's subjective. I would propose that I'm probably like that all the time. Probably more than what I felt. But anyways, regardless, in that moment, it was like heaven on earth to me compared to how I'd felt, right? For so long. And I saw an image of myself. Well, actually, what's funny is I saw an image, but it was like, now that I'm looking back at it, it wasn't actually a clear image. It was like, it was a feeling. Maybe it was the same kind of, actually, it was probably the same way that I thought. Like I see things, but I see the idea of things. It's like very, very layered, multi-layered understanding of something. Because I saw then who I've become. Now, but even when I look at who I become now, I don't really see, the image isn't really that important to me. I don't see like my face. I see a presence. Kindness and understanding, wisdom, grace. It's hilarious. Like the person talking to you guys now is so much different than the person I was before. Leaps and bounds. It's like I've died multiple times during this process, but you don't die, right? You just resurrect into something else. Transform like a caterpillar to a butterfly. So when I got that image, there was a couple of other things, and then the next day I was like, oh my God, maybe God's real. And I was like, God, show me beauty. Show me beauty. I was about to go into work, and I was afraid I was going to lose that high of like feeling good. And I was like, show me some beauty. I haven't seen beauty in a while because I was so detached from the world. I was always in my mind, just like run by my own thoughts. I thought I was thinking, but my thoughts were thinking me. It was just all the time, right? And a hawk landed next to me, and it landed like 30 feet away, and then I walked right up to it and just stood in front of it for 15 minutes, kept looking at me. I filmed it and everything on my phone, and it just kept looking at me, and I was like, maybe there's something to this. And you guys gotta understand, I did not believe in God or anything like that, religion, spirituality, even though in hindsight I was always what a lot of people would consider to be a spiritual personality was actually I didn't do spiritual practices, but just the way that my mind worked, I had my head in the clouds, right? I lived in the realm of the ether and thought and stuff like that. I was very detached from the world. So after that, I didn't go to church, but I was like, I got to redeem myself to God. And I started having dialogue with God, and it was like, I need to serve God. I had a very different perspective of what God was, right? So this son, when he wakes up in humility, he's like, I'm going to go serve, be a servant for my father. And then it says, but when he was still a long way off, his father saw him and, filled with compassion for him, ran to his son, threw his arm around him, and kissed him. Now, this is an important part too, because like before he even gets home, the father comes out to meet him on the journey back home. And to me, it's kind of like what happened with me, right? So I've been having a realization, like my ultimate realization that it grows in me today. Does it one day end and I just know it completely? Maybe. Or maybe that's just part of the game, as it just continues to expand. But it's this expandness of understanding my oneness with my source of being. That truly I am my father, I and my source of being, I and love are one. Inseparable. In that all I had really done is just created this experience of separating myself from it. And also in so doing, separated myself from my world. But what's interesting is on my journey back so to me, that was getting home, was a unification of the Trinity within me. And I'm probably still heading home. I don't know. I have a feeling when I get home, I won't care whether I'm not home, whether I'm there or not anymore. It won't matter. You know what I mean? But the father came out to meet me. So before I had that realization that my source of being is being me, the father came out to meet me. You know, and so that could be kind of compared to the relationship that I had to God before I understood more that God is being me, that we're inseparable anyways. But before then, he had to come out and meet me on my journey back, right? And then the son said to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And that's pretty much how I felt, in that really like humility, right? And maybe that's, I don't know, does that happen for everybody who does that ultimate kind of surrender? I don't know. I know others who've gone through it. You know, they say God doesn't choose the qualified, he qualifies the chosen, right? Which brings us to the next point. So the father said to his servants, quick. Now, you got to remember, so this guy was sleeping with the pigs, not in a sexual way. That's not what they said, but who knows? I wasn't there. But he was laying in the pig mud with the pigs, eating the pigs' husks, right? So this guy, you know, he is disheveled. He's got no sandals. He's got no jewelry. And whatever robe he has, whatever garment he is wearing, is covered in pig crap, and mud, and who knows, right? And so he tells the father, I've sinned against you. And the father doesn't even acknowledge that. He says, quick, to his servants, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they begin to celebrate, right? To me, that's really fascinating, because I think that one of the things that I had kind of thought too when I was, you know, on my journey home was, I gotta be good for God. And I tried to make a lot of changes, and I don't regret a single thing that I did on this journey. It was all part of my experience. And I wouldn't, it was what I had to go through, but I can tell you some of the things that I learned from it. The more I understood that God, as I see it, as love, the force that gives me the ability to exist, and think and grow, just like my everything, doesn't need me to be good for it. It is the good. And to the degree that I acknowledge that is the degree of goodness that I will express. It's weird. You know, they asked Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas, they said, shall we give alms to the poor? What diet should we observe? Should we fast? and pray. And I think his response was because I think the context of it was they were asking, how do we reach the kingdom? To reach the kingdom, do we have to go do these things? And you got to think, if they're not doing those things already, they're not, giving away anyways. They're not operating from a place of abundance. There's some kind of lack there, right? And so if they're thinking they have to change all their behavior to get to the kingdom, they'd be doing it from a place of lack. And Jesus said, no, don't do those. Don't do anything that you hate. All that is hidden becomes manifest. Nothing is hidden from the kingdom. And I've learned that. So that was kind of the experience. So, and I know that we learn through inspiration, through intelligence, and then we process it through experience to embed it in our subconscious, unconscious mind as a new state of being, right? The higher self form, the new self, right? The butterfly versus the caterpillar. And so those experiences were necessary for me. But perhaps sharing this with others who may be heading in that direction or in that state of being right now, may have already been kind of building up the experience, and maybe some little outside inspiration of someone else and what they gained from it could help along with the expediting or the smoothness of that realization that ultimately, they said to Jesus, you're good. He's like, why you call me good? God is good. Right? For my own self, I do nothing. The Father through me does all things. And love does it. That's the craziest thing about all of this. It almost sounds too good to be true, right? Or too easy or too simple. It's like, yeah, turn it over to love. You just choose what ideas you're going to hold on to. And, you have to keep looking at love like it's breathing, right? So all the time, breathe in love, breathe out love, breathe in love, breathe out love. But we forget, right? We don't forget to breathe because we understand the importance of it, but we forget to breathe in and out love, right? So we got to practice getting into that state of habit of breathing in and out the love, which is the Father, which is the God, right? So when I look at the transformation that's happened to me, when I came to the Father, right? When I came to the source of being within me, when I came to the truth of my what I am and what I have access to, I came with no sandals on my feet, no ring on my finger, and a disheveled robe. And it was coming home to the truth that these things are mine by birthright that put them on me. So I think it's really important for anybody on the journey to realize, like, in my humble opinion, that it's not about you needing to be good for God. You can never separate yourself from your source of being, but you can create belief paradigms and knowings that can give you an experience as though you are, and that can be very uncomfortable. And so it just begins with the choice to go home to the truth. And usually most people make that choice after a very tough period. You're like, all right, it's the old self can't hold itself together anymore. It's like I can't do this. So a lot of times people's pride will activate when their old self, what some people call the ego. If anything, I'd refer to it as the idea of the separate self. It's your, because an ego just means I in Latin, right? So it's your identification, your individuality, which is beautiful. You can't hate your individuality. We're not going to hate ourselves out of hate. We're not going to separate ourselves out of separation. We're not going to detach ourselves out of detachment, right? It's going to be embracing, right? And so that self is great. It's wonderful. It gives you opportunity, experience, creation. It's beautiful. It's about bringing it home. And when you do that, now the separate self becomes an individual in union and relationship with love. And that's what transforms it. You ever notice you could see someone, you could have a friend, right? Or yourself. Think of someone close to you, friend or something like that. And you have seen them at their best. And you've seen them at their worst. Right? Like, or if they get angry and they just behave in a way, it's like, wow, that's not like them. It's because there's reasons for it, but the easiest way to describe it is their frequency was dropped. Their frequency of love dropped in that moment when they were not behaving like themselves. And there's reasons for it, right? And so then you've seen them at their best. That's when their frequency of love is very high. So it's one important thing to know is usually when you see someone not behaving in their best, it's because for whatever reason there's something blocking that love flowing through them. And love can be anything, but I would say perfect love is whatever you need it to be at the time. So it's intelligence, wisdom, compassion, understanding, camaraderie, like all those good stuff, all those good feelings. That's love pouring through you, right? So you can see someone who's at love, like loves doing something, and their behavior is very different than when they don't love it. And what we didn't realize all these years is that when we were saying, I don't like this, when I hate this, I hate that, I hate that, we were putting conditions on love. And we were saying, and there's a difference between, I would prefer to do this over that, right? But if there's things that we want to have done in our life, like, our chores or our work or whatever it is, casting a spell on it, saying, I hate doing this, may not be the most helpful thing, because now, anytime you ever try to do it, you're going to get feelings of yuckiness. And you can't just suppress the feelings, because the feelings are the fruit of the belief and values that you placed upon it, right? So, and then we get mad at the feelings, we try to suppress them, and then we project them elsewhere and everything like that. But ultimately, it's the root. It's that we put a dam between that activity and the power of love to flow through us in that moment, right? So, then the next thing is, meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you. I never disobeyed your orders, yet you gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes come home, you killed the fatted calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we have to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and he is found. Now, I want you to just kind of imagine that you are all three characters in the story. They're all three different parts of you. You have the I am Father within you, which is like your direct connection source to love, right? It has all the like, it's your connection, right, to source. And then you have two brothers, children of that father, right? One of them is the good son, and the other one is the prodigal son, the reckless son, the bad son. Now, what's really interesting is, and I've said this in some of the prior casts, we, throughout our lives, there's certain behavior patterns that we did, that we personified and detested about ourselves, and detached them and pushed them off to the side, or whatever it was. And a lot of people don't even know they're there. They think the past is gone, right? So they don't exist. But until they've been healed, they're very much there, right? But they're like kicked out of the house. And so one of the interesting battles or interesting challenges that I faced was, there was a part of me that was like the older son who never left, who was always good. And then there was a part of me who made the mistakes. And the part of me that was good really detested the part of me who made the mistakes. He hated him. And not only that, but that part of me didn't just hate the me that made all those mistakes. He hated everybody else out in the world that made those kind of mistakes. He saw them all as separate from God. Now, did I acknowledge any of this at the time? Not really, right? But so it was a judgment against the self within me, who went out into the world and, had all those experiences and made so many mistakes that I detested. And I basically, it's almost like in that was like a happy story, right? But like, I feel a lot of on this experience for me, the older brother, the good son, I think he didn't let I think the other son tried to come home, and the others, and in my story, like, the good one came out and like tried to kick out the other one. He's like, get out of here. You don't belong here. You're bad. You don't exist. Get out of here. You evil ego, whatever it was. Right. And I didn't realize that would also make judgments against my world. And the whole issue here is about separation and the unification. So you can't transcend anything that you fail to embrace. So I was the son who went out into the world and made all the mistakes. I was also the son who was good, and I was also the father. I was all three. So coming home was the unification of all three of those characters. And the father says to the brother, he says, son, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. And we're celebrating because our brother was dead and he's alive again. So what's the point of that? All right, so what do we got? We have 40 minutes. Okay, so there's some other things that I've been realizing. Purpose. Just how important purpose is. How necessary it is. We people think sometimes about a utopia. And everybody, I guess, has different perspectives of it. And it's weird because on my journey, like a thing inside me said, I want to bring heaven to earth. But I will tell you guys, there was a little part of me that was actually scared. Like they say, what is it? People can have a fear of failure, but they can also have a fear of success. And I feared the success. And I think I feared the success because a little part of me said, well, if I get to the end, what happens? What happens? What am I going to do? And that brings me to, let's tie in the Marcus Aurelius. See, I love how this works, right? The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. What I've come to realize is, I've said it in part 2 of this series, right? Turning your opposition into opportunity so you can remove the obstacle and allow for creation, love, to express itself, instead of seeing what is actually an opportunity for creative expression as an adversarial opposition, whereby you create a barrier between you and what you now see as an adversary that prevents the ability for love to unify the two and create the way, right? So the impediment to action, the thing that seems like it's in the way of the action, is actually the thing that advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way, right? And it's really cool because you are standing in the way, but you are actually going to be the way. And what I've come to realize is when you make your purpose, when you make what you saw as pain into your purpose, it becomes your partner. Actually, what's a better way to say that? You know what? Another way to actually see it is, so the Corinthians thing, I read you guys that one, I think on episode 1, about what love is. Perfect love is, right? It's kind, graceful, nice, all that stuff, right? Intelligent energy, it's unified with all things. It can do anything, right? But it also can be turned into things that are discordant, right? It's up to you. We talked about how the universe expands, right? So the universe is space and material continuing to expand. Well, if the universe is space and material and it's expanding, it can't be expanding into space because the space and the material itself is expanding. So what is it expanding into? It's literally expanding into negative space, negative material, which actually means that the negative space, negative material, which we could call darkness on the outer reaches of the universe that's expanding to, actually isn't a thing outside of, it's a nothing that provides the opportunity for the something to grow into. But can you imagine a universe trying to, seeing the negative space, the nothing, as an adversary? What is it going to do? It's going to put up walls and try to defend itself. And for some reason, it feels like if you contract, if you don't allow it to expand, it will contract and start to go in on itself, right? So as we talked about in part 2, you turn the perspective of what you saw as an adversary, an opposition, into negative space opportunity, right? Then you remove the obstacle, and now you can create into it openly, right? But you need love, because you don't just need the negative space. You need the attributeless substance of creation to pour into it. For behold, I bring all things new. So it's the union, again, unions. Everything's union. So you marry love, you allow love, once you remove that obstacle, once you change your perspective and see the negative space, what you thought was your opposition, the impediment to your action, or the thing that stood in the way, when you see it as the way, the thing that gives your life meaning, makes things matter to you, and you unify love, which is impersonal, with the negative space, which by its nature is designed to be filled with love. That's its whole purpose. You have this negative space that has one purpose: be filled with love. You have love, one purpose: fill negative space, and then you stand in the way of it, and you try to hold them. You try to keep them separate from each other, and you suffer. So we got to change our perspective, right? It's really cool. So the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. And it's love will come in, and if there's something you're like, well, yeah, but this thing that I see as darkness, how could I possibly see it as light? If you can't see it, you're going to need the new, right? So you got to call love in. You got to look at the darkness, call love in, and then light will shine out of your eyes, and it will unify things, and you will expand and grow. I don't believe anything about killing the ego per se, although in some say you could say that it's killed and reborn, resurrected as more than it was. I think it just keeps continuing. I don't think we actually unlearn or delete anything. I think we just keep adding to things. If I'm trying to learn to ride a bike, I don't want to keep unlearning my mistakes, because then I'll just keep making them until it's not about unlearning the mistakes that I made on the bike. It's about allowing love to continue to come in and add to the experience to grow in understanding. So now when I learn to ride a bike, I'm carrying with me both the understanding of how not to ride a bike and how to ride a bike, and they're married to each other, and I'm a bike rider. But if I kept trying to deny all the times of knowing what not to do, then, well, I'm just going to do them and keep doing them until eventually I say, oh yeah, I'm supposed to add love to this experience, and then I'll grow and expand and be more than I was. All right. And so what's a better way to say that than what I said earlier? When you recognize that with love, what you saw as pain when you marry love, when you make partners of love and what you saw as pain, they unify together and give birth to your purpose. I was looking at my cat this morning. I've had him for a while, and he was a rescue. I just found him on the street. I used to see him and feed him, and then one day I just brought him home. And he's awesome. I love him so much. I don't know how old he is. And before this episode, I was petting. So this is love too. Ready? So I sat down. I got everything prepped. I opened up the Prodigal Son, and I was ready to record. And my cat came over and meowed. And now I turn to Love a lot, and I say, Love, come in here. Right? I zero myself out and say, Love, what's the best thing to do? And, my mind was set, like, hey, I'm going to record right now. I'm ready. I'm going to record. My energy's prepped. And I said, Love, what's the best thing to do? Right? Because I turned around, I just petted his head. And then I turned back to do the recording. And I said, Love, what's the best? And then he just sat there. And I turned, I looked at him. I said, Love, what's the best thing to do? And it was like, pet him. The podcast can wait. And I was like, okay. All right, cool. And I started petting him. And then on my desk, I put like a blanket, because he loves to just sit up here on the desk next to me. And he jumped up, and I petted him, and I was like, all right, I'll just record and pet him. And then Love was like, why not just, the podcast can completely wait. Give him Love until he doesn't want it. Because cats don't need to be showered forever, right? Eventually they're like, all right, dude, chill out. Thanks. Pets were nice. Give me some space. That's why I love cats so much, because they're very similar to me. So I just dropped the idea of doing the podcast and sat and was in the moment petting my cat. And he was all happy. And he does this thing, he plops. And he trusts me so much that he'll just plop. And I have the blanket, the desk isn't that big where I put it. And if I don't get there to make sure he's not going to plop off the desk, he just plop right off the desk. It's crazy how much trust he has. So then I'm pushed up against it, so he doesn't fall, and I'm petting him and I'm trying to slide him over without intruding on his personal space. And so I'm petting him, and then I look him in the eyes, and a thought flashed in my head. And it was you don't know how old he is. You don't know how long he's going to be here. That without Love involved for me, that's a painful thought. I love him, man. And I want him to have a happy life. But I also accept that he's going to be here like me. I'll be here and one day I won't. Who knows when that's going to be? And that can sound so scary, that painful negative space. What will happen afterwards? What will I become? All that stuff. What will my life be like after that? And in the past, I denied that those were fears of mine. I just kind of ignored them. I was never really afraid of death in the way other people were, but I think it was also because for most of my life, I'd spent so much time in pain. I think part of me was sometimes more afraid of life than I was death. But that's door number 3, right? So what, live a life? Is the answer you either fear death or you just get to a point where you fear life more than death, so you don't care? I actually asked the divine within me. I asked myself, Love within me. Is there a way to not fear death, but also truly love my life? That was some time ago, and I've gotten a lot of that answer. Beautiful, all that happens. Put it out there. And what it showed me is that, and when you ask those really deep, profound questions to Love, and you're receptive to the answer, and sometimes it takes time, and remember, every day if you're in this process of growing your understanding of your power and love and stuff like that, remember, wherever you're at now, maybe you get little answers, maybe you get big answers, maybe it seems like sometimes you get answers, sometimes you don't. I want you to know that the more you do it, of all the things to practice, seek ye first the kingdom within, and all these things will be delivered unto you. The more you practice, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea. When he pulled up his net, it was full of lots of little fish and one big fish. He easily knew to take the one big fish and threw the rest of the small fish into the sea. Right? He said there was also a man who sold everything he had for a shiny pearl or something, right? That to me is the ultimate thing, is really of all things, it says, of all the commandments, these 2 I give unto you. 1, love God. I put in there love with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. And then love yourself as your neighbor. Your neighbor as yourself, whatever. And so the first one, though, he said, of all the commandments, who cares about the other commandments? These 2 are the most important, right? Love first with all your heart, right? And so the more you turn to love, it grows in you and it transforms you. It gives you a new robe, new slippers, new sandals, new mindset, new beliefs, new understanding. And you get to a point where it's you start to breathe it. So you keep turning to it, and then it becomes a pattern. So of all the patterns that you could ever have in your life, think about it. Think about yourself, man. When you think about in your life times when you were happy and in succeeding in whatever you were doing, in whatever way you see success as, right? Go look at that feeling that you had. That's love pouring through you. And think of the times when you felt the opposite of that. That was less love pouring through you. So as you go on this journey and you grow more and more love in you, you know, it's not just about consciously saying, all right, let me call in love, let me call in love. Because what's going to happen is the more you love, being in love with your life over all other things, it transforms everything. So it's coming in, it's calling experiences to you, you know, because you got to remember, it's an intelligent energy that's connected to everything. It's omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. So the more, so it's like working for you. You don't even have to, like, sometimes you may think, why is this happening? I thought, like, it's very, 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 very likely it's calling that experience to you to clear out an old belief paradigm that was blocking love. So it's like kind of two things going on. There's kind of centering yourself and trying to keep yourself in that state of being where the love's pouring in. But the love's going to know that, you know, if you have contradictory beliefs of conditions that you place on the love, and you keep trying to breathe in that love, it's like a blockage to the airway. So the love will work with you to call to you experiences to transform your beliefs. And sometimes that means calling experiences to you that are uncomfortable to make it very, very obvious to your subconscious and unconscious mind and conscious mind that that belief is not serving you. It's not serving you. And as, because the subconscious needs that. Because it works from a subjective way that also requires negativity, right? So it needs to understand, whoa, I don't want this. Ugh, this doesn't serve me any longer. Jesus said, what got you out of Egypt doesn't get you to the promised land. And so that's what's happening. So it's not just about like saying, breathe in love, right? Sometimes you'll be trying to breathe in love and it's not getting through all the way. You know, especially if there's a discordant situation because of those beliefs. So it's patience, just patience, you know? So it's not like you're like, oh, that's all I got to do. I'm just going to breathe love every day and everything's going to be perfect from here on out. Maybe it will. I'm not going to say it won't, but just be accepting. If it feels like it isn't, you know, Jesus with Matthew, when Matthew tried to walk on the water, the wind blew and Matthew started sinking. And he's like, help me, help me, help me. Right. And Jesus is like, oh, ye of little faith, just when the wind blows, you know, stay strong, keep loving love, you know, and, you know, if it serves you, try to remind yourself that this thing that looks like it's an adversary is no longer an adversary. You've changed. You changed. At some point, you made a decision in your soul, or you wouldn't be here listening to this right now. You must have in your soul made a choice. Where you are, it's who knows? Where, like, it's not. I mean, you could be any person listening to this right now, but if you are listening to it, you've already made the choice. But you could be at different stages of it. You could be at the stage where you're calling to yourself experiences to make it very obvious to you what no longer serves you. It's okay, I promise you. Use some of the things that you may have got from here. Whatever, use whatever's helpful to help you see that what you saw was an adversary. It's not an adversary anymore. Everything that's happening is to grow you in love, period. And what you saw as an adversary, as an opposition, is now is negative space for opportunity. You don't have to fully understand it. Just try to remind yourself. And if you have to feel bad right now, that's part of the process. Just trust it. Trust the process. You made your choice. Everything that happens, everything that has happened from that point, everything that happens from this point is for that. If that's what you want. And so ask yourself right now, is that what you want? Do you want above all things to be in love with your life? Okay. There it is then. If we can intend things and believe things that can create discordant situations in our lives, why on earth wouldn't we be able to do the opposite? Right? That's the game here. So there was something else I was going to tie back to about opportunity, purpose, obstacle becomes a way, falling in love. Also, yeah, try to remember to breathe. It's probably not a bad idea to come up with some kind of practice, especially depending on where you are. Some kind of practice could be something simple. When you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep, whatever it is, I think it's easiest to make it really, really simple and easy to do. Something you can't say no to yourself. Like, it's just too easy to do. You know, and if you want to know, like, and whatever it is to say, try it out. Say to divine within me, the thing within me that wants my greatest good. What's a good practice I can do when I first wake up in the morning? And what's a good practice I can do before I go to sleep? Because you can look at your life like it's the 4 seasons, right? Before you go to sleep, what you're thinking right before you go to sleep are important, because when you go to sleep, it's like winter, and the acorns that are, and the right before you go to sleep, it's like the autumn. And so a lot of the things that sprout in the spring were planted in the autumn. And during the winter, some of the plants that no longer serve die off, and they create the space for the new plants to grow. So it's a really good time to plant a seed right before you go to sleep, right? It could be anything. It could be something like, hey, I seek that when I go to sleep, I'm able to take everything that I've experienced up until now and plant seeds for growth in the things I've learned that are in my best interests that serve me, and to allow the passing away of the beliefs that don't serve me while I sleep, to make room for those new seeds. And then when you wake up, right, you want to April showers bring May flowers, right? And so when you wake up, it could be something really simple. We spend so much time dedicated to so many other things in our lives. You know, why not right before you go to sleep, when you have an opportunity for during the winter to plant something right before you go to sleep, and allow the passing away of that which doesn't serve you to make room for seeds that were planted that evening to grow in the morning. And so it'd be important, give them some water when you wake up. That's it. Just something simple, those 2 things, right? And then also maybe it could be helpful to set in the back of your head the idea that you want to remember to breathe love. You want to remember to breathe love, and remember that this is a journey, and that keep moving forward, keep breathing. You don't forget to breathe. So we don't want to forget to keep breathing in love. And I promise you, continue to do that, and it grows and it transforms you. And now it gets easier and easier, because it through experience, and some of them can feel uncomfortable, right? But don't worry. You go through some things, the outside actually can work for you too, especially when you're on this path. It will send people to you to act as catalysts from outside to show you the beliefs that don't serve you, and that could seem uncomfortable. But also, it will send people in your vicinity, or send you to other people or other information to reflect back to you things to let you know you're on the right path. It's just how it works. It's really magical. And the more you grow in this understanding, the more it happens. And you become like the master of your world, right? But right now, it's just about growing into that love understanding. And then one other thing... oh, wow, this is perfect. I'll just tied in there. So then remember the three Marcus Aurelius quotes at the beginning. So we're going to wrap this up. What do we got for time? 102. All right. When you arrive, this is Marcus Aurelius. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. All right. So Marcus Aurelius said he's a pretty cool dude. He's smart. I mean, he was an emperor. I'm not an emperor, so maybe who cares what I said? What he said, right? And then finally, try praying differently and see what happens. Instead of asking for a way to sleep with her, try asking for a way to stop desiring to sleep with her. Instead of a way to get rid of him, try asking for a way not to crave his demise. Oh, they were at a kind of a different time, right? Just really open about it. It's like thinking about sleeping with people and killing people. Instead of a way not to lose something, try asking for a way to lose your fear of it. Now, what I want to do is I want to put a little spin on this, right? At it and just put a positive thing. So I actually do something similar to this, but instead of doing it the double negative way, the way he's doing it, I found a lot of success with this. Instead of asking for a way to get this thing, right? Try asking for a way to stop craving it, right? Because you reach out with your hand full, you get more than you receive. It's that, or I was talking earlier about people who are dating, and they say when they're dating, it seems like people hit on them. When they're single, and so when they're abundant and they're in a relationship, they'll feel like people hit on them. I've heard people say. And then some people say when they're single, they feel like nobody wants them, right? It's the abundance energy that we're sending out to people too. It's the same thing with confidence. When you have true confidence, not false pseudo arrogance masking itself under the guise of confidence. When you have true confidence, the way people will react to you is something that will actually build up your confidence, right? And it's when you go in with a lack of confidence, your behavior, actions, and the reaction of the world around you will mirror that back to you. And it can be You know, they say good begets good, bad begets bad. It can be a cycle. The good news is love can come in and fix all of these things. So I would say, instead of saying to ask to stop desiring, like stop craving to sleep with her or desiring to sleep with her, I would ask for give me the fulfillment, right? Give me the fulfillment without it. Give me whatever I want. I think I would get if I was able to sleep with that person. Give me the fulfillment for that. Give me the understanding and the energetic fulfillment so that I can feel whatever it is I think I'm going to gain from going to sleep with that person for that momentary satisfaction. Give me the fulfillment and the understanding that tells me that I deserve to feel that good without it. And the weird thing is, who knows? You could end up getting that anyways, but it would be icing on the cake, really. That's just how things work. It's crazy. Instead of a way to get rid of him, try asking for a way not to crave his demise. That's another thing. You know, if someone wants to go murder someone for revenge doesn't fill that hole. It just doesn't. It may seem like it because what they do is it's like you take you're taking your spirit. Like that's what they say, selling your soul to the devil. Think about it like you have this pizza of your soul, like a pie. We'll call it a pie. So your soul is like a pie, right? And then the world tells you when you're a baby, you're full of the pie, right? And I was just thinking of that show, Resident Alien. Is it gonna be pie? Anyways, so your pie is full, but then the world programs you or throws out a program at you that you choose to accept. The world throws a program at you that you choose to accept and says, wait, Bobby, why are you so happy? Bobby, don't you know that for you to be happy and fulfilled, you need to have friends like you and see you in a certain light? Bobby, don't wear your shirt like that. People are going to look at you weird. And if people look at you weird, you should feel bad about yourself. So, Bobby, you know, I need you to do this thing, and then you can be happy. Then you'll deserve to be happy. And so what we do is we cut slices in the pie, and we basically take the piece of pie out and say, okay, I'll get this piece of my spirit back, my happiness, when I get this thing. So now it seems like it's moving you forward, right? Oh, and I get this thing, then I'll feel happy. But now you've actually given away some of your happiness, your spirit, your love. So you actually will enjoy doing whatever you're doing less and actually be less good at it. So it's kind of crazy, right? And then here's the thing. As soon as you get the pie slice back because you accomplished that thing, you realize that you didn't gain anything. It's a zero-sum game. It's a zero-sum game. You got the slice back. And you're like, wait a second, I thought this was going to add to me, right? So then you're like, oh, all right, well, maybe, you know what it is? I know what it is. I got to go get this other thing, then I can be happy. So then you take the slice back out and you put it back out for that new thing. Like an addiction. And I'm not saying that we can't have our pie and eat it too, right? Love wants to create and expand and express and grow. It's just the mindset that we're coming at it from. If I take my slice out and then I try to get my slice back by achieving something from that place of need, in many senses, I'm coloring and characterizing that act as something that's causing me suffering because it's taken what I needed from me. It's a weird thing. I've turned it into an opposition almost. It's a different texture of love when I do it. And yes, you can still accomplish things. And this is why you can see some people, I know someone, he had $1 million house and he's got a small family. And, he just bought a $3 million house that he moved into. I mean, it's not my place to know his feelings, but it makes me like wonder, like it. I mean, I don't. Who knows? Who am I to know? But I just wonder. Do you just get to a point where it's like, what is it even for? You know what I mean? It's like, is it that same kind of energy? Like, oh, well, now I'm gonna get $3 million house. Now Like, what do we gain at that point? You have so much room. It's like, it's not even adding any value, like from like it's just, anyways. So it's a craving kind of chasing. And hey, it's creation, man. Like I said before, no one's creation is more experiency than the others. No one's creation is more creation-y. And it doesn't make you any less of a creator. But it's just your choice. It's our choice. What do we want to feel ultimately? And I want to have my pie and eat it too. And so then you say, well, if I'm not taking that slice out and, chasing after the slice. And by the way, I did that my whole life. I had so much things and success and made way, way more money than I do now. And I just kept feeling everything I got. I remember I got a Cadillac and I was like, yeah. And I was happy for a couple days. And I lied to myself and told myself it was because it had AC seats and stuff like that. That's why I wanted it. Now, I never once used the AC seats. Why would I use AC seats? I don't need, like, what? But it was ultimately because I wanted people to see me driving a Cadillac. Because after I got all of my needs fulfilled, what else could I do but show it off to other people? And I wonder if there was almost an energy in there of like passing on like envy. Like, it's like, does that happen? Is it like there's this energy kind of twist or something? I'm not sure. I don't know. But regardless, I didn't need the Cadillac, and I just spent a lot of money on it for really no reason. Yeah, that's interesting. So going back to the pie analogy, so you'd say, well, if I'm not taking the pie slice out and then chasing after that spirit, what would compel me to do it? Love does. Think of something that you've loved to do. I asked my daughter, we were talking about this, like, being in love with your life. And I asked my daughter what was an example for her recently. And she's like, oh, when we did Tough Mudder, right? Tough Mudder, we did this race together. It was a 10K. And it was this mountain in Vermont. And you had to run up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain. You went into ice baths. You got shocked with electrical wires. It was crazy. And all the pictures, she is smiling the whole time. And it was an amazing day. It was beautiful. It was awesome. And it's funny because, when I asked her to describe a moment that she felt like she was in love with her experience, it was that, right? And it's kind of hilarious because we were beating up our bodies and doing a lot of strenuous work. And it was amazing and fun. And we did awesome. Like, oh man, if you saw her, like, she wouldn't give up on the obstacles. Like, she was like just all in, right? And yet her, like me and all of us, has had days where her room's a mess and she doesn't want to clean it. That's weird, right? I want to clean my room. And then we look at ourselves like we're lazy. It's just, we have this weird condition blocking love. You let love flow through you and you don't even have to think about what you want to do. It's like you can't even help it. You will express, you will create, and you will do for the greater good. It's like an inevitable thing. It's a drive, a compulsion. Out of an abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh, right? Things that we do. All right, anyways, we're going to wrap that up here. Yeah, so tomorrow, the Be in Love series is going to wrap up pretty soon. Might go in a little bit more practical things tomorrow. We'll see. And then the next thing that we're going to, and this will serve as a basis, kind of a foundation, after I get a little bit more practical things of how we can, call in love. And I don't like getting too much in the details because I really want to encourage people. Like, I like giving people perspectives they can chew on, add to their understanding to allow a greater flow of the love. But ultimately, the goal of this is to provide a reflection back to as many others as want it. The ability to see that kingdom within and really start having the inner dialogue and access to that power so that you can grow in your understanding, that you can live your life and there's something within you that you can turn to in any situation. And it's way more powerful than what many have not realized for a long time. Anyways, we'll end it here. I'll see you guys soon.